I have a very basic file here, nothing real exciting going on here. In fact, we can just even say hello world for good measure right there. Save it, and you hopefully are aware that I saved it to this directory here. I can list the contents of the directory, and there it is, mainclass.cs. Well, I'm going to say C# compiler, please, oh pretty please. Compile mainclass.cs, and the default output for mainclass.cs when you just compile it like that is an executable file. So then I can say mainclass.exe, use tab key there for some auto completion. Run it, and you see, oh, hello world, very cool. Now I'm going to say csc/t for library, or no, sorry, target, and then say library. So that'll give us a DLL file, mainclass.cs. List the contents of the directory, and now we have a DLL. The DLL being a little bit slimmer than the other file. What's the main difference? Let's say ildasm /out. I'm going to call it me exe code.text file mainclass.exe. Again, I'm hitting the tab key there for some auto completion. Hit enter, and that'll give us a me exe code disassembled down to the .NET level, the bytes, the CLR missile.NET code. Let's do the same for the DLL. I'm going to say mainclass.dll, but instead I'll say me DLL code.text file. And now we have two text files, a me DLL code.text file and a me exe code. Let's look at these things. Me DLL code.text. Run that, open that up. I'm going to set that aside for a sec. Let's get the executable version. Me exe code.text, and let's see if I can line these up somewhat close to each other. Let's get that right. Oh, pixel perfect almost. And then let's take up some of the screen, more of the screen real estate here as best as we can. And then I'm going to Alt-Tab between these two files, and let's see if we can find the difference between them. So Alt-Tab, 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 Alt-Tab. Do you see any difference? Do you see any difference? Okay, I can identify one. Hopefully you're seeing it. It's the presence of this entry point. The EXE code has this entry point, and .entry point marks the method that serves as the entry point for the executable. If we're going to have an executable and we want to run it, we need to know where to begin execution. And you may think, Jamie, it's called main. Of course we begin execution in main. And that is true in higher level languages, but in the CLR level, the missile code, the intermediate code, let me just draw it out again how this all works. We have C# code. We compile that using the C# compiler. That generates what I've been calling missile code. I've also seen it called a CIL code, I think common interface language or something like that. Doesn't matter. We can't execute this directly. It has to go through the JIT process, the jitter at runtime. I have videos on that. The jitter at runtime generates native instructions, which the CPU can then execute. Well, we're looking at missile code here. We're looking at this level here, the Microsoft Intermediate Language level. And the only difference between the executable and the DLL is the presence of this .entry point. In fact, if I remove the .entry point in Alt-Tab, you'll see that we have identical code, pretty much, except obviously the name of our files here differ. But besides that, and the whatever this random number is, the rest is the same. Let's scroll down to the bottom, and oops, come on, I said to the bottom, please. Oh yes, it's going to scroll back to my highlight. But let me Alt-Tab between these two, and you'll see no difference. No difference. So what is the difference between a DLL and an EXE in .NET? And it's the presence of an entry point. And that is it. Now let's go back to the EXE. I'm going to hit Control Z here. The .entry point, again, in missile level code. The dot, anything that begins with a dot. The dot means data. You can go watch the metadata attributes and reflections videos if you want to brush up on that. But the dot means data. And this is simply data to .NET saying, hey, this is the first method that you call. And then and then we can begin execution here. We just have to start running our code somewhere, and this looks like a good place to start it, so we can say .entrypoint. If you go look at my missile programming playlist, you'll see we can mark any method as the entry point with a few restrictions, and .NET will begin execution there. Now, having proven to you that the presence of an entry point is the difference between a DLL and an EXE, I can reference an EXE to the same as I can reference a DLL. When .NET first came out, you couldn't do that, and then finally someone scratched their head and thought, you know, they're both assemblies. It doesn't really matter. Let's allow the users to reference EXEs the same as we reference DLLs. The only difference between the two is this presence of this entry point. And if you ask me, that's if you end up referencing EXEs like DLLs, then something sniffs about your architecture. It doesn't quite smell right, but you certainly can do that. In fact, let me prove to you that we can. Don't save these. I'm going to close both of those. We have this main here, and I'm going to call it me other main class. And I'll save that, and let me bring up the command prompt again. Let me erase everything in here. Erase star.star. Yes, list the contents of the directory. All my files are gone, even this one. So I'm going to say, hey, can we save this again, just so I can get it to show up again. There we go. Clear the screen, and let's compile this me other main class. So I'm going to say csc / target library, meaning DLL file. Actually, we don't want to make a library. I forgot we're referencing executables. That's the whole purpose of this example. CSC main class.cs, but let's give it a target output file name to me main exe.exe. How about that? Hopefully that works. And then if I want to view these things outside of the DLL, or the assembly is the better word, I have to mark them as public. Both the class must be public and this main must be public. Out. I think this all looks good. Hit enter. And now I can say me main exe.exe, and there's hello world, sure enough. But I want to reference this executable that we just created. Let me prove to you that we do have an executable created there. So how are we going to do that? Let's list the contents again, and I'm going to copy this class name. I'm done with the publics. We don't need the public, so it doesn't really hurt to leave them on. And let's change this class name to something else, because I kind of have to in order to reference it correctly. And then down here in this other main that we're creating, I'm going to paste our old class name and say, hey, invoke your main. Alright, so hopefully that makes sense. We made an executable with me other main class with a main, and we compiled that to an exe that we're going to reference now. But when we reference it, we're going to say, hey, invoke me other main class.main, the one that is sitting in this executable. So instead of referencing a DLL, we're going to reference an executable. Kind of weird, but totally legal. csc/reference me main exe.exe, main class.cs. I won't specify an output file name, so our output file name will just be main class.exe like we've seen before. No compile errors. Let's list the contents of the directory. Now we have two executables. This executable up at the top referencing this executable. That's just awkward, but totally legal. Main class.exe. I'm going to run it, and you'll see, hey, it worked. Hello world. And just for tickles, I'm going to erase me main exe.exe, and then I'm going to run main class.exe, but I've erased its buddy. It was referencing and relying on that other executable, but now it's going to try to call in and say, hey, where'd you go? Guys, here we go. Main class.exe, hit enter, and file not found. Oh man, that's bad. You know what's kind of fun? You know what? We created the problem. Oh, where's that? Submit an error report to Microsoft. I create the problem. I want to send the report. Whatever. And let me clear that off. File not found exception. Could not load file. Or assembly. I love that word, assembly. That's what we're studying. Me main exe. It's gone. Version 0 culture. We're going to study all this culture, public key versioning stuff. Or one of its dependency, the system cannot file it. Or find the file. It's gone. It's bad. There you go. There's the difference between a .NET EXE and a DLL.